Welcome back. Today we'll be understanding the concept of immunity testing or susceptibility testing of RF circuits, which in a way is also known to be electromagnetic compatibility. So I forgot to mention the title of this slide, which also was present in the previous part. So we are talking of EMI diagnostics. So when it comes to EMI diagnostics, it is closely related to measurements, and also the whole reasoning behind having diagnostics is to find out what are the ways to make the equipment under test immune to various interferences. So before that, we also have to understand the measurements, which is also a part of diagnostics, and also immunity testing, which is a very important requirement for diagnostics. So what is immunity testing? Immunity testing is the exact opposite of emission testing. While in emission testing, the noise radiated from the EUT is measured, in immunity testing, it refers to the process of subjecting the equipment under test to an electromagnetically hostile environment and then assessing the presence or absence of any modification in the performance of the EUT. If any change in the functioning of the EUT is perceived, then it is quantified and compared against the international or national standards as per the requirement of that particular instrument or the equipment. If the instrument fails to pass these tests, then it is rendered incapable of performing efficiently in the real world. So, in this subsection, techniques used in immunity measurements for pre compliance or compliance EMI testing are explained under two different classes, namely continuous testing and transient testing. So, immunity testing is just the application of some electromagnetic phenomena to your product. So you can think of it as the opposite of emission testing. Instead of measuring what's coming from your product, immunity testing involves subjecting your product to the electromagnetic phenomena. So there are three main issues. The first, emission is the production of electromagnetic energy. Emissions occur when a source emits heat into the environment. These emissions can interfere with other electronic devices. As such, EMC studies monitor for unwanted emissions. They also propose countermeasures, that is fixes, to minimize these emissions. Susceptibility is a second thing. Susceptibility is the tendency of an electrical device to malfunction. This can be due to unwanted emissions or radio frequency interference. Immunity is the ability of machines or equipments to function while in the RFI, the interference environment. So, though there are interferences, yet it will maintain its regular functionality. The third is the coupling. Coupling is the mechanism of the equipment that emits interferences to reach other devices called the victim equipments. So, transient immunity test that we would be looking at in this particular lecture is of four major types that we are going to talk of immunity testing: the electrostatic discharge, the second electrical fast transient bursts, surges, and the fourth is the voltage dips, interruptions, and variations. The others, of course, are the continuous EMC phenomena immunity tests, which we'll be looking at in the next lecture. So today we'll be talking of transient immunity test. So let us begin with the first one, the ESD, the electrostatic discharge. Then we'll follow with electrical fast transient bursts. Then next surge, and the fourth one, voltage dips, interruptions and variations. So in electrostatic discharge, we'll be looking at three major types of discharges: the contact discharge, air discharge, and indirect discharge. So mind you, we are looking at subjecting the equipment to such um, kind of environment. We are doing an immunity test in order to diagnose how the equipment behaves. So this is under diagnostics. So electrostatic discharge refers, that is the ESD, refers to a sudden transfer of a large quantity of charge from one potential to another in a very short duration of time, that is within few nanoseconds, causing the generation of an intense electric field. This electric field can cause temporary or permanent damage to nearby electronic systems. A general example of ESD is the shock that a person would feel when touching a metallic object. While humans can withstand that type of electromagnetic energy, most electronic equipments and integrated circuits cannot. ESD can occur due to factors such as improper insulation or defective grounding in the circuit of the instrument. It can hamper or interfere with the operations of an electronic device in three ways: the direct contact discharge, the discharging through air gap, or indirect discharge. So, we have three major types to look at. So, what is the fix here? An anti static wrist strap is used to make sure that the voltage difference in our bodies and the computer is balanced out by grounding the human body, with an anti-static wrist strap. Any excess static charge in human body will be dissipated right away. So to simulate the electrostatic discharge phenomenon and to find out whether the equipment is immune to such discharges, uh, the one of the equipment for such a simulated environment is the ESD generator. So the ESD test aims to simulate the effect of discharges from the fingers of personnel, either directly or via keys or other metal objects held in the hand. The personnel, having been charged to a high voltage by triboelectric charging, usually due to rubbing contacts between their shoes or clothing and dissimilar material used for flooring, storage, etc. So this is the waveform of an electrostatic waveform, which is generated due to the static buildup in our bodies. You can see here to the left. So the figure on the right shows the figure on the left shows the standard waveform, uh, which is going to be used for these type of tests. And the standard uses EN 61000-4-2. That's the ESD test, which is a single unidirectional impulse. So on the right, you can see the ESD generator, which creates this kind of a waveform. You can see this is the body of the ESD gun. So this has to be simulated. It's kind of resembling the amount of static discharge from bodies. This is a human body model. So let's understand the ESD test bed. The contact discharge should be made. So you can see here there are three major types that we talk of. Here there is an indirect contact discharge through the horizontal coupling plane. You can see the horizontal coupling plane here. This is the vertical coupling plane. These are metallic planes. This blue colored thing is the insulating mat. Okay, there are some standard dimensions for these. And this is the ESD generator, that's the gun, which is pointing now at the moment to this board. It is going to uh, point at this and discharge the impulse wave onto this plate. So it is not directly being coupled to the equipment under test. So it is indirectly being injected into the vertical coupling plane. Here, if you see the ESD gun, the direct contact, it is directly injected into the equipment under test. And here too, you see this is an indirect contact, and it is indirectly injected into the equipment under test through the horizontal coupling plane. While the third one, which is through the air gap, could be this gun could be left at certain distance from the equipment under test, and the waveform could be injected at a certain distance from the equipment under test, which means that you don't directly point the tip of the gun onto the equipment, but a certain distance away. You can see here the reference ground plane. uh, the reference ground plane, which is at the bottom below the table, is placed around 0.8 meters below the equipment under test. Now these are bleed resistors around 470K. So all of these coupling planes are actually uh, connected to the reference ground plane, including the gun is then connected to the reference ground plane. The bleed resistors are then used for making the measurements. Now, having understood this, let's talk about the contact discharge. Contact discharge should be made to conductive surfaces and to horizontal coupling plane and vertical coupling plane. Some typical conductive surfaces on a EUT contained in a non-conductive enclosures are screws and other metal fasteners, connector housings, pins and connectors and metal covers. So some of the most potentially susceptible areas are pins in a connector to which no cable is attached, around a reset switch and a plasma LCD or LED display. Air discharges should be made to insulating surfaces such as video displays, screens, or keyboards. Some of the most potentially susceptible areas are displays and anywhere where a metal fastener, PCB, or other metal is close to the surface in a non-conductive enclosure. A ground reference plane shall be provided on the floor of the test area. It shall be a metallic sheet of copper or aluminium of 0.25 millimeter minimum thickness. Any other metallic materials may be used, but they shall have at least 0.65 mm minimum thickness. The minimum size of the ground reference plane shall be 1 meter, and it shall protect beyond the EUT or coupling plane by at least half a meter. A distance of 1 meter minimum shall be provided between the equipment under test and the wall of the test facility and any other metallic structure. This requirement may restrict the use of a small shielded room for its test. The EUT shall be connected to the grounding system in accordance with its installation specifications. No additional grounding connections are allowed. The connection of the earth cable to the ground reference plane and all bondings shall be low impedance. Coupling planes are connected to the reference ground plane with cable that contain 470K resistors at each end of the cable. The ESD test setup shall consist of a wooden table, 0.8 meter high, standing on the ground reference plane. The horizontal coupling plane is 1.6 meters into 0.8 meters. and shall be placed on the wooden table. The EUT and cables are isolated from the horizontal coupling plane by an insulating support around 0.5 mm thickness. The ESD generator is connected to the ground reference plane. The contact discharge should be made to the conductive surfaces and to the horizontal clamping plane or coupling plane. A vertical coupling plane also you can show the contact discharges. Some typical conductive surfaces on equipment under test contained in a non-conductive enclosures are screws and other metal fasteners. All right. So, so what is done is for air discharges, you can also inject the current into insulating surfaces, which then through the coupling plane can connect to the equipment under test. So, for direct application of discharges to the EUT, the ESD shall be applied to such points and surfaces of the EUT as are accessible to personnel during normal usage. The test shall be performed with single discharges. On pre-selected points, at least single discharges. So, multiple discharges are recommended when attempting to find the source of ESD susceptibility or after modifications designed to harden against ESD. The ESD generator is to be held perpendicular to the surface to which the discharge is applied. The discharge return cable is to be kept at a distance of at least 0.2 meters from the EUT. So, the contact discharge for contact discharges, the tip of the discharge electrode shall touch the UT before the discharge switch is operated. In the case of air discharges, the round discharge tip of the electrode shall be approached as fast as possible to touch the UT. After each discharge, the discharge electrode shall be removed from the EUT. The generator is then charged for a new single discharge. So discharge switch, which is used for contact discharge, shall remain closed. At least 10 single discharges shall be made to center of one vertical edge of the vertical coupling plane. The vertical coupling plane is around 0.5 meter to 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter in size and is placed parallel to and positioned at a distance of 0.1 meter from the equipment under test. So this distance should be around 0.1 meters. So this is the ESD test bed setup and three major types of measurements: contact, discharge, air discharge and indirect discharge. The next is the fast transient bursts. The FTB aims, or it's also called the EFT, it aims to simulate the disturbances created by a showering arc at the contacts of ordinary AC mains, switches or relays contacts as they open due to the flyback voltages caused by inductive energy storage in the current path. So it is simulated using this kind of a waveform. Figure on the left shows the standard waveform for the standard EN 61000-4-4 FTB test. It consists of a single unidirectional impulse repeated at a 5 kHz rate in bursts lasting 15 milliseconds with 3 bursts per second. So the figure on the top shows the basic scheme of the waveform generator and the figure below shows the coupling mechanism for the EFT or the fast transient burst test setup for the particular standard EN 61000-4-4. So the fast transient burst test bed. The F Here it is before you. The FTB is a wideband phenomenon with spectral components up to hundreds of megahertz, and therefore, as with other RF tests, layout is important for repeatability. The coupling of the burst is strongly dependent on the EUT's stray capacitance to its surroundings. Layout aspects which must be observed are as follows: the coupling of the EUT and generator to the ground plane. You cannot perform a compliant FTB test without a ground plane. So it must be at least 1 meter square and should extend beyond the equipment under test. Here, that you can see at least by 10 centimeter all around. The burst generator is bonded to it by a short strap. So it will be bonded to this, the generator will be bonded to this reference plane, not a length of wire. And this means that the generator will normally sit on the floor, not on an adjacent table. This makes remote software control of the generator more desirable as a remedy for backache. Alternatively, the ground plane could be at tabletop height as long as other distances are maintained. The EUT is placed from the ground plane by 10 centimeter of for tabletop equipment. And for tabletop equipment, I'm sorry, the EUT is placed from the ground plane by 10 centimeter, and for tabletop equipment 80 centimeter. The 80 centimeter high wooden table is used here as in many other EMC tests. The second part is the clear distance around the EUT. The minimum distance from the EUT to all other conducting structures, and this includes the test generator and capacitive coupling clamp, a condition which is sometimes forgotten. It must be around half a meter. The coupling clamp itself must also have a clear distance around it of at least 0.5 meter. You can see this is the coupling clamp. So the distance around it around 0.5 meter. Earthing. Earthing of the EUT. If it will be separately earthed in the real installation, then it must be connected to the ground plane in a representative manner. Otherwise, no connection is made. Cable layout. The distance between the EUT and the coupling network or clamp must be 1 meter or less. Long cables should be coiled with 40 centimeter diameter, 10 centimeters above the ground plane. Note that this differs from the treatment prescribed for emission tests. It is wise to maintain the cable separation of at least 10 centimeter from the ground plane under all conditions and for all cables, not just the one being tested. The next is the capacitive clamp. Itself must be directly bonded to the ground plane. This introduces a conflict for EUTs which have cable entries greater than 1 meter above the floor, since either the cable must be further than 1 meter from the clamp or the clamp has to be raised above the floor. There is no firm guidance on resolving this problem, but we would suggest that it is more important to bond the clamp to the floor so that the induced stress is repeatable at that point, and accept a longer cable as long as its route is taken carefully. But there may be arguments for the alternative approach in some circumstances. The procedures for applying the bursts are generally straightforward. The standard requires at least 1 minute for each coupling mode, which for a repetition period of 300 milliseconds means at least 200 bursts. The product or generic standard being invoked will determine which ports are tested. In contrast to the other test, only the specified test level need be applied, although you may well want ramp through the levels to check for lower and higher level susceptibilities. For the clamp application, this means that only 2 minutes testing is needed per port, once in each polarity. The next is the surge test, lightning test. Um, the surge test aims to simulate the effects of lightning on AC power supplies and any long cables. Long cables is usually taken to mean metallic interconnections longer than 10 meters between different items of equipments which are themselves some meters apart, or outdoor cables. Figure on the left shows the standard waveform for the test standard EN6100004-5 surge test, which is a single unidirectional impulse specified by two waveforms at the same time. As a 1.2 by 50 microsecond voltage impulse into an open circuit, and an 8 by 20 microsecond impulse into a short circuit, leading to its common name, the combination wave. The standard surge waveform for testing telecommunication cables, that is the exit at the exit of a building, has a broadly similar shape with a 10 microsecond rise time and 700 microsecond fall time. When testing mains inputs, these surges are applied as a positive or negative voltage at all the zero crossings and the peaks in a cycle of mains waveform. Time is allowed between each impulse to avoid overheating of the surge protection devices. Two generators are used to simulate surges in main power line of the UT via a decoupling network. Decoupling and protection networks, which are Zener diodes, varactors, etc. The maximum repetition rate of surges applied to the setup depends on the device. However, on average, 10 surges are applied at each level with a time interval of not more than 1 minute. The surge coupling circuit. The test procedure requires you to take the following steps. So you can see before you the coupling circuit. That's the surge generator, and this is the coupling circuit. So the testing is done in the following way. They apply at least 5 positive and 5 negative surges at each coupling point. Wait for at least a minute between applying each surge to allow time for any protection devices to recover. Apply the surges line to line, that is 3 combinations for 3 phase and 1 for single phase, and line to ground. So 2 combinations for single phase, 3 for 3 phase. Synchronize the surges to the zero crossings and the positive and negative peaks of the main supply. Increase the test voltage in steps up to specified maximum level so that all lower test levels are satisfied. Apply a sufficient number of pulses to find all critical points of the duty cycle of the equipment. The next is voltage dips, interruptions and variations. A generator simulator is required. So voltage dips, interruptions and variations. This is the standard EN61004-11. This standard to test the tolerance of the electronic system to voltage dips, interruptions and variations that can occur due to imperfections in the distribution systems. A voltage dip refers to a sudden drop in the AC supply voltage for a short duration of time, followed by the restoration of the original waveform. On the other hand, voltage interruptions occur when the supply voltage apparently disappears for a short interval and then reappears in its original form. As the name suggests, voltage variations happen when the supply voltage becomes higher or lower than the rated voltage. These anomalies in the supply voltage can deeply hamper the power quality factor of the electronic system. They may induce short circuiting and even explosions. Devices such as UPS aim at mitigating this phenomenon. Since the compactness of an electronic system is preferred, having an additional device to stabilize voltage fluctuation is not always ideal. Therefore, the electronic devices must be inherently susceptible to these voltage variations. The desired lab conditions during the tests are quite flexible as long as the electromagnetic environment does not interfere with the EUT's operations. The test setup includes a generator that simulates the voltage variations connected to the EUT via good quality, low EMI cables. So, a generator simulator is required to provide a peak inrush current of 500 ampere for an average of 230 volt mains. The significance of inrush current lies in the fact that it is often the biggest factor that causes serious damage to electronic systems as far